For the moment, though, terrorism in the northern parts of Mozambique will dominate the SADC Troika meeting in Pretoria. South Africa is currently chairing SADC's organ for politics, defence and security cooperation. International Relations and Cooperation Minister Naledi Pandor is expected to officially open the meeting. SADC has deployed its mission in Cabo Delgado to stabilize the provincial battling with insurgency. Our international reporter Kailihle Khumalo joins us now from Pretoria. Very good afternoon to you, Kailihle.
Well, certainly a very good afternoon to you, Flo. So indeed, there's quite a lot expected to be looked by the ministers. We know that terrorism is a major concern for Mozambique. So the SADC mission has been deployed in Cabo Delgado in the northern parts of Mozambique since July last year. So we saw also in January when the heads of states were meeting in Lilongwe in Malawi. So they decided to extend the very term and the period in terms of the deployment of the troops in that part of Mozambique. We know that for some time they've been working so hard, but also in terms of the progress report that the ministers will be going through, looking at some of the successes, some of the milestones that have been able to be obtained by this SADC mission in terms of making sure that they recapture some of the towns, the villages that were taken over by the terrorists.
A report. What do we know at this time about the sort of progress that is being made in Mozambique in terms of the SADC mission making that sort of progress and reclaiming some parts, as we mentioned? What is clear at this time as we speak about what could possibly be in that report?
Well, in fact, Flo, just a couple of months ago, we saw that when SADC leaders were meeting in Malawi, they were quite happy with the significant progress that the troops have made in Mozambique in terms of stabilizing that part of Mozambique. But also in the main, we know that it's a very rich part of Mozambique. We know that in terms of gas exploration, they have quite a number of reserves in that part of Mozambique. And also, most importantly in this regard, we know that now the process of rebuilding, reconstructing Cabo Delgado is also in full swing, where now Mozambique at some point will be hosting a summit to really prioritize that part of Mozambique in terms of making sure that in terms of humanitarian aid that is also prioritized and making sure that life really normalizes, so to speak.
Yeah, I remember last month that the President Cyril Ramaphosa did indeed extend the SNDF deployment in Mozambique. Are we aware of what the plan is now going forward? It's a month later, and one wonders if there's been enough progress to such an extent that one would not need to extend that deployment. What do we know at this point in terms of what's on the mind of the President when it comes to deployment?
So it's going to be part of the issues that the ministers will be looking at. And we know that in terms of South Africa's support of this particular mission, we have over 1,400 troops coming from South Africa, but also in terms of the contribution from countries like Angola, Tanzania, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Botswana as well, among others, are some of the troops contributing countries. So they're quite satisfied with the work of the troops. But now what's going to be a very important question is in terms of the term now. We know that it's going to expire on the 14th of April. So post 14 April, what's going to happen? So that's going to be one of the main issues that the ministers will be looking at. But we do know that, Flo, so it's the ministers meeting today. During the course of the week or so, now the heads of states from the region will have another extraordinary summit where they'll be looking at some of the decisions that have been taken by the ministers, and of course giving a final stamp of approval in terms of now what the ministers have been able to do.
And I mean, the main reason, of course, for the deployment of soldiers in and around Mozambique and certainly Cabo Delgado was indeed to quell the violent extremism in many of the country's northmost regions, particularly Cabo Delgado, as we say. What do we know about the activities at this time of those extremist groups? Because they are usually sort of violent and tend to take responsibility of anything and quite proud of anything that they manage to do. What are we hearing from some of these extremist groups?
Well, at this point in time, Flo, what we do know is that the troops really have been working so hard in terms of recapturing some of the villages, the towns that were under control of the terrorists in Mozambique. But also what is important for the SADC leaders is to try and deal with this particular problem. We do know that it is a very big problem, because where there is terrorism, in the main, you always have quite a number of causes that will spark such concerns. The issue of the exclusion economically, the issues pertaining to the opportunities not given to the young people. So those are some of the reasons that have really been attributed as primary causes for these concerns, and really eventually then spilling over into terrorism. But also what is important in this regard is that we know that Mozambique is very important in the SADC region when it comes to energy. So hence this particular focus from the side of the leaders, making sure that they stabilize that part of Mozambique, but also quite a lot of concerns in terms of the investments. You have the likes of Total. They had to abandon massive amount of investments in that part of Mozambique in light of the terrorism that disrupted those activities in terms of the extraction of gas. It was likely to be a game changer for Mozambique's economy. So it's important for the SADC leaders to make sure that they put concerted efforts in dealing with these concerns, but also making sure that SADC ends that particular title that it's once held. It's always been known as that stable part of Africa. So when you have terrorism and really disrupting and causing all kinds of things, really it is a major concern. But also the leaders do insist, Flo, that they will not drop a ball in this regard. They'll continue to make sure that they keep a very close eye in this particular situation. So they're very delighted with the progress made, but they do insist that now what's going to be the way forward in terms of making sure that will the deployment stay in Mozambique? What's going to be the plan in terms of augmenting and bolstering this particular mission in Mozambique?
All right, Kailihle, thanks very much for that reporting. International reporter Kailihle Khumalo in Pretoria for us, where the